They're saying it's the best movie of 2025. All right, it's the best movie of the year, the best vampire movie of all time. They made a smash hit. It got a high score on Rotten Tomatoes. This is the film of the year, basically. But I'm going to tell you that Sinners was average at best vampire film, and here's why. So we got Ryan Coogler and we got Michael B. Jordan at it again. They've done a few films together. They started off with Fruitvale Station. They have a good repertoire, all right? Distinct Spike Lee, Denzel Washington, Martin Scorsese, Robert De Niro. Okay, so they make films together. They get a really good budget from, the Hollywood powers that be. So the movie was shot well. Don't get me wrong. It was shot well. It was directed well, and the acting was really good. The storyline, however, had a lot of holes in it. It was okay. It was, to me, the story was kind of written. It seemed almost like an amateur, but it was directed and acted so well they were able to pull it off, basically. All right, even by turning the third act, or before the third act, into a music video that they know a lot of black people would like. But we'll get back to that later. So this movie is set, I believe, in like the Jim Crow stage, right after World War I. All right, because one of the characters, the main protagonist, Michael B. Jordan, is like, hey, I was in the war, I fought against, Nazis and all that. I think that's World War II, actually. But yeah, basically he was in, World War I, so he came back as a veteran, and he worked for Al Capone. I'm not even sure if Al Capone, hired any blacks to be gangsters with him. Everything was pretty segregated back then. I do think some mafias did hire black people for, odd jobs, and maybe even include them at the lower level of the organizations. But that was kind of a stretch to me in general, and that's why I say the script was average at best, but it was directed really well, and it was produced really well as well. All right, this is not a bad movie. It is entertaining. It's a slow boil film all the way up to the very end, very similar to Dusk Till Dawn. All right, this movie is basically a Dusk Till Dawn remake to a certain degree. Two characters. You got Quentin Tarantino, George Clooney, both criminals. All right, and they get to the third act and everything just hits hell because they're vampires, okay? And there's a lot of racial allegories to this film as well. I mean, it's pretty, blatant. White people are vampires. We get it, all right? This movie was also what I like to call a racial playoff movie as well. Shoot the Klan at the end of the movie, that's going to be the payoff, and all the black people are going to automatically love the movie. Ryan plays on the race thing pretty big, calling white people colonizers and the Black Panther, stuff like that. So, he has his, Spike Lee-ish type of tone to the film. And of course, a lot of black people are going to identify with that because who doesn't want to shoot the terrorist group, the Klan? So I get that part of it. But then again, it's like, okay, this is a vampire film. A vampire is kind of the white people thing to a certain degree. I mean, there's even a guy named Vlad the Impaler, all right, based off of Dracula. They've been making vampire movies for the last, couple of 100 years, even in all the literature. I mean, that's really their thing to a certain degree. So this is like a black spin on the vampire. We had Vampire in Brooklyn. I know we've had other, black vampire films, Blackula and all like that. But this was, it was done well. If a white person makes a hip hop movie, you can make a hip hop movie. It could be good, but at the same time, if you don't do it correctly, people that originated are going to be like, man, it's okay. Or they might just be trying to be politically correct. As far as it being a vampire film, it seemed like it was kind of segged in there at the very end, similar to Dusk Till Dawn. Dusk Till Dawn somehow worked. You got Robert Rodriguez, Quentin Tarantino, George Clooney. It was an excellent film. When it came out, nobody was expecting it to be a vampire film at the end. It worked. It really worked. This one, because of the racial elements in it, because they try to segue the Klan in it and shooting the Klan to make black people feel happy, to me, it felt like it was forced to a certain degree. It didn't really have to be there, And the whole racial allegory of, whites being vampires and the Indians trying to chase the whites and everything, it just seemed like it was just formulated to really make a black audience feel like, woo, we gotta win, yay, shot the Klan, you know, like that's what I felt about it. You know, the movie isn't really like third layer deep. It's not like The Matrix, or it's not saying like anything really deep. Of course, it's a vampire film. I think they tried to go deep with saying that, you know, the music is evil. And then, you know, during the third act or right before the third act, which is, you know, the final act of the film, they had a music video out of nowhere, right? And I saw, you know, I saw how it did work, so it had to be there because it was a very, you know, well thought out cinematic masterpiece as far as the music video portion of the film. So I know they didn't want to cut that out, but it was not needed. I think it went over a lot of audiences' head. You know, it's basically saying, you know, the devil and the music are like, you know, kind of like, you know, parallel to a certain degree. And there are some truths to that. We know you got drill music, other forms of music as well, you know, evil rock and roll and stuff like that. And we know it influences people to do dumb shit, basically. All right, I get that part of it. But it just seemed like it was kind of forced in there because it was such a good scene. Me personally, I would have left it on the editing room floor. I would have made the scene shorter. I would have put all the other, you know, elements of, you know, hip hop music, and it was just kind of just stuck up in there to a certain degree. Most of the audience members going to be like, okay, what's going on with this? You know, where the 80s guys come from? Where the, you know, the Chinese dancing come from? Like, what the hell is going on here? And then the vampires kind of pull up and kind of save the day to bring the storyline back into, you know, the proper realm, basically, of being a vampire film. All right. So, in my opinion, like I said, it wasn't necessarily a bad film. It was very entertaining, but I know it was formulated to basically, you know, it was marketed as, of course, this black vampire film. And what Hollywood generally does is it chokeholds the black American audience, all right? Not even the black American audience, just black people in general, because it's a high budgeted movie, and we only have a few of those every year. Sometimes we don't even have them within the calendar year. They make black films to be the cleanup film of the year to kind of bring in all the losses that they took of the year, basically, or the last few years. And this was just that. It was Hollywood's another Black Panther movie because all they have is superhero movies right now, and all the art house films, some of the Netflix films that they produce don't really bring a return on their investment. So what they'll do is chokehold the black audience, come out with a decent or a high budgeted black film, right? They'll get a director, they'll say, hey, yeah, you shoot the Klan to end, whatever, so we can make our money. And that's kind of what this movie is. It's a payout movie, basically, in my opinion. All right, and it works. It works. Like I said, if you shoot at the Klan at the end of the movie, black people are gonna like the movie. I'm not taking a dig at my own people. I'm just saying, I mean, where the hell did that come in at? You know, we get it. It was the Klan. It was basically Dust Till Dawn. It was Dust Till Dawn all over again. I think he wrote it maybe so he doesn't have to pay any type of, you know, it's not sample clearance, but he might not have to pay any royalties to the original writers of Dust Till Dawn. But if I was the original writers of Dust Till Dawn, I'd be like, hey, bro, wait a minute, you know, like, wait a minute. You know, this is very similar to Dust Till Dawn. It's basically almost could be a Dust Till Dawn remake, the black version. All right, so let me know what you think. I know a lot of guys like this film. I'm just giving you my opinion on the film. It was good. You know, it was good acting. It was entertaining, but I don't have to see it again. Peace.